If you're a content creator on Facebook, this is probably going to be one of the most important videos that you watch this year. Because as you guys know, the content monetization program from Facebook pays you for text, photos, stories, videos. But there's a lot of questions about how they actually pay. I've seen a lot of DMs from people on Instagram reaching out to me saying, Lester, I got X amount of millions of views and I don't even know why I'm making more money on some posts while not making any money on some other posts, even though they have the same amount of views. And so what we did is, because we have access to many Facebook pages from the network that we have built over the past few years and also from clients that we work with, we are able to see exactly what works, what gets views, what actually makes money on Facebook. And so we took all of that data and we fed that data to an AI tool, and we wanted to identify patterns, allowing us to see what actually makes the money with the new Facebook content monetization program. So like I said, if you are a Facebook content creator, this is probably going to be one of the most important videos that you'll watch this year, because I'll give you exactly a clear understanding of what actually drives the revenue with the new program. And if you have content creator friends on Facebook as well that are monetized and making money from their content, you might want to share this video with them as well, because like I said, we have enough data to now know what actually makes money, how the Facebook content monetization program actually pays. So no, this is not going to be a fancy video with graphics and stuff like that. I'm actually going to show you all the research from the data that we provided the AI tool. We provided over 200 posts to this AI tool with specific views and screenshots and how much money each post made and everything, in order to compile and identify these patterns and understand how to increase your revenue, how to make more money from your posts. And here's a little hint: it's not views. So let's dive into the posts that I've made inside of my private community for my clients of Facebook Creator Academy. And I'm going to share all this information with you guys because I think it's really valuable and it could really help a lot of you guys out there. So even though this is meant only for my clients inside of my community, this essentially is information that I want to share with everyone on my channel and give you guys a little bit more information about how you can actually maximize your revenue on Facebook with a new content monetization program. Okay, so let's dive deep. How Facebook's content monetization program actually pays from a 200 plus post data-driven research. Now, this, like I said, is research-driven results. This is not something that comes from opinion. This is from us feeding an AI tool, a bunch of posts. It was over 200 posts that we fed to this AI tool. It was mostly screenshots of multiple posts that went viral, some posts that had a lot of views but didn't make a lot of money, other posts that didn't get a lot of views but actually made some good money. And we wanted to identify what were the metrics. We fed the engagement data, we fed the revenue data, we fed niche, we fed everything to this AI tool in order to identify these patterns. So the goal was simple: understand how Facebook actually pays creators, identify which formats produce the highest revenue, meaning that which format pays you the most money. Is it videos? Is it reels? Is it photos, text? That's what we wanted to find out, and determine the number one metric creators must optimize if they want the highest RPM possible. Meaning that, what is the number one metric that will pay you the most for every 1,000 views you get on your post? Not your videos, but your posts. So the first thing that we got to talk about is essentially why views don't actually predict revenue. The biggest misconception that I see is that the more views you get, the more money that you'll make. And that's not actually the case. Most creators assume that if you get more views, you make more money. This is completely false based on our research, because we have had multiple posts with 5 million views that only made either a couple $100 or even less than $100. And that tells you a lot, because that means that if you wanted to get 100 million views in a single month, yeah, you can get that number of views, but that doesn't necessarily translate into more money. So getting more views, technically you do make a little bit more money, but is it the right amount of views, or is it the right type of views that you need in order to make the most money? Because I have Facebook pages that don't get a lot of views, but they still make more money than other pages that do get multiple millions of views per month. So here are some examples from our data set. We had videos with 3.3 million views that made $35. We had videos with 1.9 million views that made $47. We had videos with 500,000 views that made $27. So these posts had huge reach, heavy sharing, yet RPM was extremely low. So even though they should have made way more money, they didn't. So meanwhile, posts with far fewer views made significantly more money per viewer. So some examples where we had a post with 32,000 views that made $25. We had posts with 48,000 views that made $6. We had posts with 18,000 views that made almost $4. So these posts had basically a higher RPM than the ones with millions of views. This essentially shows that Facebook does not pay for views. Facebook pays for monetizable attention created during the user's session. And I'm gonna basically explain what that means later on this video, but you'll basically understand what I'm talking about once I give you more information about the research that we got from this data set. So during the study, we discovered that 4 core reasons why one post earns significantly more despite similar view counts, engagement, or format. So there are specific reasons why some posts make more money than others. It doesn't really matter whether it's a video, a text, a photo, story, it doesn't really matter. These are the 4 things that you need to watch out for if you want to make more money from the content monetization program on Facebook. And the first one is basically audience geography. And this is the #1 RPM divider. This is the one thing that I've been telling you guys for 5+ years now. 2 posts with the same format, same length, and same view count can produce different earnings simply because of who watched those videos or who saw those posts. So high value countries, meaning that these are the countries that will pay you the most money for every 1,000 views: United States, Canada, United Kingdom, and Australia. I call these the tier 1 countries. This is because advertisers tend to spend more money on these countries, and so as content creators, you get paid more because ads pay more to Facebook, and Facebook has a bigger share of the revenue. So low value countries, this doesn't mean that these views from these countries don't matter. It simply means that they pay less money. So Latin America, India, the Middle East, Africa, things like that. Those are the countries. So if you get a lot of views from those countries, so let's say you get 10 million views from India, those 10 million views might pay the same as getting 100,000 views from the United States. So that's the difference. Audience demographics is a huge factor. This is why one of the things that we teach my clients is you need to understand how to run ads so that you can create a balance of your audience and you have mostly a tier 1 audience. This is one of the core lessons that we have inside of the Facebook Creator Academy program, because I want my clients to know how to run ads. I want them to understand that if they want a higher RPM, if they want to make more money, then they need to have a balance where tier 1 audiences outweighed tier 2 and tier 3 audiences. So posts gaining traction in the US consistently had RPMs 10 and 20 times higher. Posts that exploded globally earn next to nothing per view, even if they gather massive reach. So even if you had 100 million views on a single video, but those, let's say 99% of those views came from all over the world, essentially those 100 million views will pay you some money, but not as much as if you were to get those millions of views in the US, Canada, UK, and all of that. So point number 2 that we found from this data is dwell time. And this is essentially just retention. And retention means how much time someone spends on your post. This is why Reels tend to get the most reach, because they need to be watching something that could be 15 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. And so the more time they spend inside of your post, the more reach that post is gonna get. So that retention, that's why the more retention you get on some of those posts, the more money you'll make. And so with videos, it's fairly simple, because if you get someone to spend 30 seconds of their time going through your post and watching that video specifically, then you have an average 30-second retention rate on that post. Now, how do you do that with photos? How do you do that with text? How do you do that with other formats? That's the main thing, because as you know, the content monetization program pays now for not just reels, but pays for photos, for text, stories, and all that. So creating retention on formats outside of video, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's definitely worth it once you see the data on why it's important to create retention in order to make more money. So every high earning post that we saw had more people spend more time on it. So for reels, this is essentially high completion rates, replays, comments triggered by the hook, people spending time reading on-screen text longer than normal average watch times. So you've probably seen those very short reels on Facebook and even on Instagram with text on it that are 8 seconds and 10 seconds with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. And that's because they're getting a lot of replays, and that's retention. Or they have a lot of text, and so people are spending time reading that text, and then the video autoplays again, creating retention. Or if you have a 30-second reel and someone watches the entire thing and 80% of people are watching the entire thing, then that is a high completion rate. So the top performing reels, the videos that will make you the most money, are not the videos that are getting the most views, but the videos that have a higher than normal retention. You can see that data inside of your Facebook insights. So if you click on any of your videos inside of your Facebook page, you should be able to see what is the retention for some of those videos. Is it higher than normal? Are you getting a higher than normal average watch time on some of your videos? And is that little graph going up, meaning that on average, this is a top performing reel? If you see that, that video should make you more money than the average video you're posting on Facebook. So even if it had less views, you're still making more money because you have a higher RPM on that video. So for text and photos, how do you create retention for text and photos? And this is actually not that complicated. The way you do that is you have people spend more time on your post. So if you do a photo, for example, you create long descriptions and long captions to provide more context. So instead of just uploading a single photo with no description and no caption, then someone might just stop by and just see the photo, hit the like, and just keep scrolling. So that means on average, you had someone spend 2 seconds on your image, on your post. That's not a lot of retention. And so even if that picture has a lot of views, you're still not making a lot of money from that photo because there's no retention on that photo. However, if you have the same exact photo with a long description, where basically they see the photo and then they actually read the description, now you have increased that retention to essentially someone spending 8 seconds, 10 seconds on your post. So now Facebook sees this as a signal to promote that post to more people, to far more people that are non-followers, and they see that they're spending time, and so they see that as a valuable post. So the way to do that is you create long captions that can drive that retention, and you can also create engagement in the comment section of your post. So for example, if you have a lot of comments, you can essentially reply to the comments. You can ask questions to your audience in the comments. You can create that engagement by just participating in the comment section of your post. And that's going to be essentially because, as you know, everyone reads the comments. So if someone sees the photos and they have 300 comments, they might be curious enough to just click on the comments and start reading the comments. And if they see that you have replied to the comments, they're more likely to also create a comment in order to get a reply from you. So again, that is creating retention, and that retention means, essentially in the eyes of Facebook, a good trigger, a good signal to promote this post even more and hopefully make more money, because essentially they're spending more time on your post. So if you have those 10 seconds, 15 seconds retention rate on an image post, for example, there's more opportunities for ads to show up inside of that post. So if someone is spending 2 seconds just browsing your photo and they just move on to the next thing, there's not enough time for Facebook to show an ad on a post that they only spend 2 seconds. But if you have 10-15 seconds someone actually spending on that post, whether it's in the comment section or reading the description or maybe reading some text on the image, now you have an opportunity for ads to show up where essentially you make more money. So the number one patterns that we saw is that the RPM always increases when comments were long and discussions were heated or emotional. And as you know, on Facebook, you can get a lot of people just fighting it out in the comment section with different opinions. And this is what you want to create, because essentially the more comments you get, the more retention you create, the more money you make. And basically, if you have a post that can create that retention, that is how you'll make the big money, and you will increase your RPM, where essentially now your views have more value because you have more retention and you make more money. So you might have a photo post with 100,000 views that only has 25 comments and no description, but you might have another photo post with only 25,000 views that has a long description, that has 50 comments, and you would notice that the RPM on that photo with 25,000 views, it's way higher. Even though it got less view, it made more money than the other post with 100,000 views. So that's the one thing you have to understand, is that it's not about the views, it's about creating retention on your posts. Okay, so let's move on to point number 3, which is shares can hurt revenue if they send traffic to low value markets. This is really important because, like I said, we have access to a lot of Facebook pages. I work with some of the biggest content creators in the world, some of the biggest influencers and even celebrities on Facebook. And we can see essentially the data behind the numbers. We can see what makes the money. We can see basically if they're getting 100 million views, if they're getting 500 million views on Facebook, we can see exactly what makes the money. And, sometimes the numbers can lie to you. So these are some of the things that we found. So a post getting heavily shared outside of the United States usually produces more views, more reach, and more likes. However, you do make less money. So this is because shares push content into a global non-monetizable markets, especially when viral in countries with low CPMs. This also explains why posts with high shares often have the worst RPM. Posts with fewer shares but deeper comment sections earn more per view. Shares don't equal money. Just because you have 1,000 shares on a post doesn't mean that you're making more money on that post specifically. Shares equal reach, and reach is not monetizable unless the right people are reaching it. So if you're getting a lot of reach outside of the United States and you're getting 1,000 shares, 2,000 shares outside of the United States, guess what? Yes, you're getting a lot of reach. Yes, you're getting a lot of shares, but that does not translate into more money, because essentially the content is being shared in places that you don't really want it to be shared in those places. Now, this would apply if you make English-speaking content. And so if you make content for specific countries, let's say you make content for people in Italy, just to give you an example, and all of your content is in Italian, then it wouldn't make sense, of course, to try to target people in the US because most of your audience is going to be in Italy. But you have to understand that because you're only targeting one country, essentially your RPM is not going to be the same as someone who's making content for the US. Or even if you're getting a lot of views in that specific country, of course, you need 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the views in order to be able to make more money. And that's how you get people complaining, I got 50 million views and I only made $500 or I only made $1,500. That's because they don't understand this data. They don't have access to this information. And so they just basically say X amount of views should equal X amount of money. And that's not how it works. Facebook is not YouTube, and Facebook uses a completely different system to basically pay content creators based on the formats and the views and the retention that they get on some of these posts. Okay, so let's go to point number 4, which is not all of the engagement is equal. So there are 2 types of engagement. Meaningless engagement means that you get likes, quick shares, one-word comments, swipe by reactions, short swipes on reels. This almost never increases RPM. So anyone who just stops on a post, hit likes, and just continues to the next post, meaningless. Because essentially that is not creating retention. That is not doing anything for your post. And even though you got 10,000 likes on this post, it doesn't necessarily mean that is making money. At the end of the day, as content creators, all we're trying to do here is to be able to make more money. And so likes don't pay the bills. If you get a lot of likes on some of your posts, that's great, but that doesn't mean that you're making money from some of those posts, because you can get 10,000 likes on a post, but only be making $10 on that post. So quick shares, meaning that someone's sharing that on tier 2, tier 3 countries. We just talked about that. Essentially, that means nothing. If you're only getting one-word comments, meaning that someone's saying, hey, this content sucks, or, this is really good, or something like that, it's not creating that retention in the comment section that you want. People are not leaving like meaningful comments or asking questions and stuff like that, which is exactly what you want. So monetizable engagement is people reading a long post, rereading a post again, long comments, comment replies, people scrolling, watching a reel twice. All of that stuff is what's really going to make the difference in order to make more money from your post and actually make money from the engagement, which generates the revenue on Facebook. Now that, I just gave you all that information, let's talk about how Facebook actually pays creators, which is exactly why you're watching this video and the main thing that you are probably wanting to know. Well, the number one thing we established already is that Facebook does not pay you for views. Facebook pays you for monetizable impressions, and those impressions are driven by dwell time, which is retention. This is the biggest factor that determines how much money you'll make per post. Audience, basically the audience demographics, meaning tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Sessions, basically how long someone stays within your post, whether it's reading, leaving a comment, reading the comments, all of that stuff. The quality of the engagement, whether that is actually spending time on your post and liking it after they spend a couple seconds reading your description or a couple seconds reading the comment section, all of that stuff. So in simple terms, Facebook rewards posts that keep valuable audiences on the platform longer. A post that causes someone to read a long comment thread, scroll replies, watch twice, engage in discussion, and stay in a US-based session. Now, this could also be a tier 1, meaning that Canada, the UK, Australia, and all that. That essentially gives you the opportunity to make more money because, like I said, it's essentially more people, more advertisers spending more money in those countries, and so there's more money to spread around to content creators. This is the only reason why US-based audiences pay more money. So having those things will make you far more money than basically, someone who might get 500,000 views on a Facebook reel and then continue to scroll by. So you might have 500,000 views on a video, yet that video only made you like $4. And then you're saying, well, Facebook is not paying me enough. And you're not understanding these things that you should be improving in order to be able to make more money. What format pays the most? Is it reels? Is it photos, text? This is a question that I get daily on my Instagram. And by the way, if you guys are not following me on Instagram, you can definitely go and follow me because I share a lot of some of the behind the scenes that I do and some of the stuff that we post on some of these pages and the results that we get. Stuff that I don't post on YouTube is what I post on my Instagram. So if you want to follow me, just go to my description to see my handle, or just go and search for my name on Instagram. So after analyzing hundreds of examples from all formats, text posts and photo posts consistently had the highest RPM. This is not like, usually this wasn't the case a couple of years back. The only way to make money from Facebook a couple of years back was only using videos, and Facebook videos were basically paying the most money. But these days, you can make sometimes more money from photos and text. This doesn't apply to essentially every single Facebook page because some Facebook pages only post videos, while others only post photos, and others only post text posts. So from all the data that we fed this AI tool, from 200 plus posts, it concluded that our text posts and our photo posts were making more money than our videos. So that's just something that I need to say, it's just so I understand that it's essentially, we're saying this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that videos don't make money. It just says that from the data that we provided the AI tool, it's just letting us know that our text and photo posts made the most money, but we'll keep posting videos because we know that videos can also make money. And the reason why is because text and photo posts, they force longer reading time. We had more comments on some of those posts. And so they also attracted more English speaking audiences, which generate a higher RPM and makes more money. So the RPMs on some of those texts and photos were about 15 cents to 25 cents plus, meaning that is higher than a low performing RPM. Low performing reel, essentially a reel with more views, was essentially getting sometimes 5 cents, 10 cents RPM. And some of those photo posts and text posts were getting a higher RPM, sometimes 45 cents, 50 cents RPMs. So the only way that reels would outperform text and photos is when they meet specific conditions, like they have a high US retention. So that means that 95% of the audience that watched that reel were from the US or a tier 1 audience. They had a lot of replays. They were paused to read the text on screen on the video or perhaps the description of the video. They had a lot of comments that trigger a lot of emotion, whether it's positive or negative emotions. And the viewers actually stay in the comment section after watching the reel. So essentially, retention in a tier 1 audience. If reels don't hit these triggers, that they get views, they get shares, they earn almost nothing. Essentially, you have to understand these things in order to drive that engagement that Facebook wants, because essentially the content monetization program is performance based, but we don't have, like from Facebook, we didn't have a clear understanding of what that performance-based revenue model was actually, how was it going to work. It's essentially, they just said, hey, we're going to pay you now based on performance, but they were never clear about what that performance was actually like. This is what we did, this little experiment and data-driven research to find out what we needed to do in order to make more money. So in terms of highest revenue per 1,000 views, we found out that text posts, photo posts, and high retention US heavy reels were essentially the ones that were paying the most money. Now, viral worldwide reels, meaning that reels that got a lot of views, but mostly outside of the United States, those were the lowest revenue, meaning that we've made, even though some of them got 20 million plus views, they still were making very little money. So some of our text posts and photo posts were making more money on average when you actually do the math and find out what the RPM is for some of those posts. So let's go to number 3, which is, what is the number 1 metric that creators must optimize for to earn the highest RPM possible? So this is probably the biggest question that you might have is, should I be aiming for shares, comments, likes? What exactly should I be aiming for when I'm making my post? And the biggest thing is retention. And retention is the one metric that has produced the highest earnings for every single post that we have analyzed using this data. Over 200 posts, the posts that had the highest retention rate, the bigger watch time on some of those videos, and even on some text posts and photo posts that have no watch time. When people spend more time on some of those that had a lot of comments, a lot of engagement, and very long descriptions, essentially those posts made more money. And we did the math. We found out, hey, these have higher RPMs, even though they got less views, but they made the most money. So retention was the biggest thing. Now for video, it's the same thing. Retention on your videos, if you have a 60-second video, are you getting people to at least watch 50% of that video? If people are dropping off in the first 5 seconds of your video, then you have a problem. Even if you have 100 million views on that, but 90% of your audience decided to just move on in the first 10 seconds of your video, then you're not going to make a lot of money because you don't have any retention on that video. So replays, retention, longer watch time, driving comments in the comment section of your videos, that would definitely help you with the retention and help you make more money for every 1,000 views. Now, text and photos, the same thing applies. Creating that retention. You want to have people stay inside of your post for at least 15 seconds. And if you're uploading an image, then you want to make that image something that people will stare at for a couple of seconds, and you don't want them to just scroll away to the next post. You want to have them maybe read the description of that image, You want to have them go to the comment section, essentially to just either read the comments or leave a comment, and you're creating that retention where you have people spend at least 15 seconds on your post so that you make more money from that post. So the number one thing that helps you make more money is retention. Retention on your videos, retention on your photos, your texts, all of that stuff. It's what's really going to make the biggest difference. So optimize everything for retention. Optimize your reels for retention. Optimize your reels to make sure that you're hooking people in the first 5 seconds. So you need to have some sort of text visual hook. You need to make sure that you have people watching past that 5-second mark and hopefully staying for the whole video if you can. The better you understand your audience and the more that you understand about how to create hooks, the more money you'll make from your videos. This is something that we actually teach our clients because creating hooks for your videos, it's one of the most important things that can make or break your video. And we have now proven data that retention is the number one thing in order to make money on Facebook. And so if you don't have great hooks, you're not gonna get great retention on your videos. So you can also increase retention by adding long descriptions and captions, hooks that cause debate, emotional conflict. Carousels is something else that we've been using and testing as well, which is photo carousels, people scrolling multiple photos to spend more time with you on that post. So the goal should be, how can I get someone to stay for 15 to 60 seconds on my specific post, whether it's a video, photo, text. If you can get them to spend 15 seconds with you, you will make more money from that post. So number 2, target high value audiences. So, basically within the content, if you're trying to target people in the US because you know that US audiences will pay you more money, you will get a higher RPM. So that means you need to create content that would fit or attract people in those audiences. So whether it's entertainment, news, politics, whatever that is, you need to speak about topics and trends that appeal to that audience. And of course, you want to make reels that force replays. That could be reels that have fast visual action, have text that must be read, reels that create basically loops that forces people to replay the reel over and over again. And again, the entire goal is we're creating more watch time and more retention on our reels. All right, number 4, avoid posts that can go viral globally. You might think, hey, the best thing that can happen for my Facebook page is where I'm posting a video and I get 100 million views worldwide on that video. And that is actually the worst thing that you can do for your page, because number 1, you will attract a lot of followers from tier 2 and tier 3 audiences, essentially diminishing the RPM, the overall RPM for your page. And essentially what's going to happen is every single post now, if you get 100 million views on a single post worldwide, you might get like 100,000 followers or 200,000 followers from tier 2 and tier 3. So now when you post something else, guess what's going to happen? The algorithm will promote your content to those countries again, and you will continue to lower your RPM and make less money, even though you are getting more views. So if you want to essentially make sure that you don't make this mistake, stop chasing the views and optimize for revenue. And optimizing for revenue could be like, if you're creating content for a US based audience or English speaking audience, make sure that you have specific triggers or context within that video that speaks to people in those countries. That essentially, if you have dialogue in that video, if you have voiceovers, that everything is in English, that you're labeling your content in English, that you're doing everything that you should be doing to make sure that Facebook understands that your content should be promoted to those countries. And if you use an AI tool, like some of the tools that Facebook has released, in order to dub your dialogues and stuff in different languages, what's going to happen is you're going to attract a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 audiences, which, yes, it's going to help you unless you want to be Mr. Beast, where you're reaching millions of people across the world, essentially, and get like 100 million, 200 million views per video across the world. Then yeah, you can use dub and essentially, reach people in Spanish and multiple languages and build yourself like a international influencer. That's what you want to do. But if that's not what you want to do, if what you're trying to do is essentially make more money from your content and make the most money that you could possibly make from your content, then essentially you want to avoid your content being pushed to those countries in tier 2 and tier 3. So lastly, stop chasing likes. Posts with thousands of likes, millions of views, tons of shares often earn the least amount of money. Likes don't equal money. Retention equals money. So the summary is Facebook pays you by monetizable time spent, not by views, session quality, and audience demographics. Those are the triggers that will make you the most money. The sooner that you understand this, the more money you'll start making on Facebook. So which format pays the most? Text, photos, high retention reels. Avoid global reels with no sound that can get millions of views but pay very little. Avoid that. So the only metric that you should be aiming for is to consistently increase your RPM, is essentially creating more retention on your posts. So now that you have all of this data that I've given you from our research, I'm hoping that you understand what you should be doing, and you can go back to your data inside of your Facebook page and see what's actually making the most money. Now you have this feedback. You can just see from your photos, your text, your videos, all of that stuff, and you can see that from a different perspective on why some of these posts made more money for you. And now you can just optimize for revenue instead of optimizing to get the most views possible, because it's not about getting 100 million views, even though getting more views definitely is better for your page. But if you get the right type of views, you can make more money. Even if you don't get 100 million views, you can still make more money, because now you're optimizing for the right metrics in the eyes of Facebook, so you can maximize your revenue that you can make from the Facebook content monetization program. And trust me, we are really good at generating views on Facebook. So all this data just gave us a very clear picture on what we should be doing over the next 12 months for our Facebook pages in order to make the most money possibly that we can make. So if you want to be able to increase your views and you want to see how we generate hundreds of millions of views from our Facebook pages, go ahead and watch this video right here. I broke it all down and I actually show you how we've been able to get millions and millions of views across multiple Facebook pages that you can apply to your own page. And now you can use this data to make more money from the views that you're getting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.